Good afternoon, everybody. This is Susan, and let me make sure that we are recording here. We are recording. Okay, so this is Susan Schaefer. This week, we're taking a virtual vacation to Iceland. Just to let you know, if you haven't done this before, Take a Virtual Vacation is a weekly webinar where we visit different destinations, either domestic or international, since travel right now is not really happening as much as it was prior to March of this year. And everybody needs a break and wants to go on vacation. So right now, we're doing it virtually. So Take a Virtual Vacation is brought to you by the cooperation of 4 different travel agents and travel agencies. There's myself, Susan Schaefer. I'm with Ships and Trips Travel in Tennessee. We have Maria Stephanopoulos with Ingenious Travel in Florida. Barbara Oliver with All Together Now Travel in California, and Gail Sherman with Wine Lovers Travel also in California. So the 4 of us came together, created Take a Virtual Vacation as a group on Facebook, and we're the ones that are putting together these webinars. So if after this webinar or any webinar or in the future, if you have any questions about any of these destinations, or when it's time to book travel, feel free to contact us. Our email addresses are here, and we would be more than happy to answer your questions or help you book your travel. So with that, I'm going to hand this off to Jessie, and she is going to take us on vacation through Iceland.
Alrighty, I'm gonna make sure that you guys can see my screen before I head on.
Yep, all good.
Perfect, yep. Thanks guys. Hey everyone, my name is Jessie Bly. I work for a company called Emerging Destinations, and we have the pleasure of representing 2 companies in Iceland, Iceland Pro Cruises and Iceland Pro Travel, and I'm so excited to take you to the destination today, one of my favorite destinations, and what I hope to be on your bucket list, and one of the first places that you start thinking and planning your next trip to after the world isn't so crazy anymore. So thanks so much, Susan and Maria, and to the other 2 travel agents for inviting me. This is definitely one of my favorite destinations, so I'm really happy to be doing this today. So hopefully you guys know a little bit about Iceland, but I'm just going to give you a brief rundown and introduction to the country. So Iceland is located in the Atlantic Ocean between Greenland and Norway, and just below the Arctic Circle. So just to give you an idea of size, it's about 40,000 square miles, which is similar to the state of Kentucky. So although it might look quite large, it's very small in just comparison with some other countries, of course. There are only 340,000 inhabitants in Iceland, which might be quite shocking to some of you. I'm from Atlanta, so you know there's 3 million plus residents in the metro Atlanta area. So just to put Iceland in perspective, only 340,000 inhabitants. Reykjavik is the northernmost capital in the world. So Reykjavik is the capital of Iceland. Just a little fun fact for you, maybe a bucket list item to visit the northernmost capital of the world. Iceland is also the most sparsely populated nation in Europe, going back to those 340,000 inhabitants. And it's also the most eco-friendly country in the world in terms of energy sources. So we'll touch on a little bit of geothermal activity and all the ways that Iceland is just giving back to the earth in their eco-conscious mindset, and for helping to explain to travelers how important it is to travel eco-friendly. So that's just a little bit about Iceland. I wanted to give you just a little bit of idea about the climate as it's ever changing, and I think it might be some questions that you guys might have about the temperature and the weather. So I wanted to touch on the climate. So the warm Gulf Stream has a positive effect on Iceland's weather, but you can experience the 4 seasons in one day. Iceland has a funny saying that says, if you don't like the weather, stick it out for 30 minutes and it'll probably change. So I definitely experienced that when I was there, constantly putting back on my parka and taking my parka off and taking off my thermal pants. So it's definitely ever changing, but it does have a moderate maritime climate with a cool summer and mild winter. So the average temperature in the winter is about 23 degrees Fahrenheit to 41 degrees Fahrenheit. And the average temperature during the summer is 50 degrees Fahrenheit to 59 degrees Fahrenheit, and it can even reach up to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So I think a lot of people think that Iceland can be quite cold, but during the summer months, it's very enjoyable actually. So summer months in Iceland is about around May to early August. So that's when you're going to get your midnight sun, which is when the sun essentially never sets. So if you're wanting to have more daylight, more time for excursions, more time to explore, the puffins have migrated to the country. So it just kind of depends on what you want to see. But if you're wanting to experience the midnight sun in the summer months, May to early August is a great time to travel to Iceland during those summer months. Then the winter months begin in September and go to March, which is a great time to see the northern lights. So the midnight sun will fade away, the northern lights will start peeking out, but of course you sacrifice the warmer climate and the puffins and longer days for the northern lights and a cooler climate. So it kind of depends on what you want to see, what you want to do, but Iceland is a year-round destination. So back to Reykjavik, the northernmost capital in the world. This is a bustling city with tons of bars, restaurants, museums, history, culture. It's a beautiful way to start your journey in Iceland. Keflavik is the international airport that you fly into, and Reykjavik city center is about 45 minutes to an hour drive, so it's quite close to the international airport. What you're looking at here is Harpa Music Hall. So they'll do opera performances and other unique art performances and stuff. So if you're interested, stop into Harpa Music Hall, where you can either take a tour or view one of their shows. Also, most of the cruises, if you're interested in cruising Iceland, depart from Reykjavik. So again, a really great way to start your journey in Iceland. This is one of the famous churches in Reykjavik. It's the tallest building in Reykjavik, believe it or not. And if you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, that's a statue of Eric the Red outside of the church. Eric the Red is said to have discovered Iceland and named it Iceland because he wanted to deter future explorers from visiting the island. He wanted it all to himself, so named it Iceland, and that's why he named Greenland Greenland. So he actually deterred a lot of people away from the country by flip-flopping the names, just for your information. But anyhow, this beautiful church is in city center of Reykjavik, and I highly, highly recommend taking a tour. The main religion in Reykjavik is Lutheran, believe it or not. So this is a Lutheran church. Oh, the ever famous Blue Lagoon. Definitely a must stop when you are traveling to Iceland. So when you fly into Keflavik, the Blue Lagoon is about halfway between Keflavik and Reykjavik. So it is a little bit out of the way, but a really great place to stop if you've just flown in and you want to maybe shake off some jet lag. So the Blue Lagoon is, of course, a natural hot spring. So this is, again, one of the geothermal wonders of Iceland. You can spend anywhere from an hour to the whole entire day here at the Blue Lagoon. There are tons of spa services that are offered. There are lockers for you to store your luggage. There's a wonderful restaurant called the Lava Restaurant. And one of my favorite things is the walk-up bars. So you can be swimming around the Blue Lagoon and taking your mud treatments, walk up to the bar, enjoy a nice drink, and you can go in and out as you please. So if you have the time, great. It's great to spend a little bit of time at the Blue Lagoon, or you can also just do a quick trip as well. They have a new hotel where you can actually stay near the Blue Lagoon as well. I want to mention, if you don't have the time to experience Iceland, you can spend anywhere from 7, 10, 12 days in the whole country. If you're just using Iceland or Reykjavik as a stopover, the Golden Circle is a must do. So from Reykjavik, you can start your Golden Circle journey, which is about an 8-hour day tour. And it consists of Iceland's 3 most popular tourist attraction, which is Gullfoss Waterfall, Geyser Geothermal Area, and Thingvellir National Park. Geyser Geothermal Area is this picture to the right, and Thingvellir National Park is actually where Iceland had their first parliament. It's where 2 tectonic plates come together. It's actually a really cool place for you to visit. This is that Gullfoss waterfall that I was talking to you about. There's tons of different waterfalls in Iceland. When I was there, I thought that I'd get sick of seeing a waterfall after waterfall after waterfall, but each one is more extravagant than the others. So definitely one of the popular attractions of the country are its extensive waterfalls. So again, that's the Golden Circle, which is a great way if you have limited time in Iceland. So how to travel around Iceland? There are several different ways you can get around. So Iceland's Ring Road, or Route 1, is a road that circles the entire island. So if you are adventurous and would like to try self-driving, it's very, very easy to navigate, and the stops and attractions are easily marked along the way. So if you're interested in driving the Ring Road, it's very easy. Of course, you can also hire a guide if you'd like to take you around the Ring Road. But we'll talk a little bit about flying and getting to the other popular attractions and cities of Iceland as well. But Ring Road is definitely a wonderful way to really see the whole country, as it essentially is a circle around the entire country. So what I wanted to do is break Iceland into 4 parts: the north, east, south, and west, just to give you an idea of some of the landscapes and highlights of the area. I could spend hours talking about each of these areas. I promise you that I won't, but just wanted to give you an idea of just the different landscapes of Iceland. So in the west, we start with Snæfellsnes Peninsula. I know that sounds like maybe a Sesame Street character, but the Snæfellsnes Peninsula is actually described as Iceland in miniature due to its many different landscapes, dramatic fjords, snow-capped mountains, sandy beaches, and even small fishing villages. So you can really get a great taste of Iceland in the west and towards the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Within the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, you have the Snæfellsjökull Glacier. I'm working on my Icelandic, so I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that one quite correct. But anyway, it is essentially the pearl of the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, and it's actually located on top of a crater where Jules Verne set the setting for his journey to the center of the Earth. So that's a little fun fact for you right here on this glacier. Now, you see super jeeps and snowmobiles and people kind of walking about. So this is quite an adventurous excursion, this particular glacier, but just keep in mind that you can be as adventurous or not adventurous as you'd like in Iceland. The super jeeps are a great way to just kind of enjoy the scenery without doing too much strenuous activity. The ever famous puffins. So Iceland is home to 60% of the world's puffin population, and 60 million puffins visit Iceland a year. They actually migrate to the out to the ocean when it's not the summer months of Iceland. So just a little fun fact for you there. So puffins are easy to sight, especially in West Iceland from about June to September. So the Snæfellsnes Peninsula and the western portion of Iceland are great for puffin watching and bird watching in general. So that kind of wraps up the western portion of Iceland. Moving on to the north, scratching the Arctic Circle, this region offers a large spectrum of scenery to explore. The waterfall that you're viewing right here is called Detfoss Waterfall. It's Europe's most powerful waterfall. So as you can see, if you can spot the tiny little human up there on the left-hand side, it's absolutely magnificent. And this is it just at the midnight sun. So you can see it almost looks a pinkish hue while the sun is setting. One of my absolute favorite areas in the north is the Lake Mývatn Nature Reserve. And it's actually one of the most popular destinations in Iceland. To the left here, on the screen here, you can see the Mývatn Nature Baths. I highly, highly recommend this if you have the time over the Blue Lagoon, as the scenery is absolutely incredible and the Blue Lagoon can get quite crowded. Of course, it's a must if you don't have the time to get to the north, but Lake Mývatn is the exact same thing. It's a geothermal hot springs, just a little bit smaller and less crowded in the northern part of Iceland. Also located in the Mývatn Nature Reserve, there's Gottafoss waterfall. Again, another waterfall, but just as beautiful as the others. This is the waterfall of the gods, and just kind of creates this half moon circle and beautiful, beautiful flowing water over the edge. I really loved Gottafoss waterfall in Lake Mývatn. Also in the north of Iceland, there is it's what's called Húsavík. So nowhere else in the world do more whales gather than in the waters of North Iceland. 99% of the time when you go whale watching in Húsavík, you have chances to sight whales. So that's during the summer months, just for your information. But there are 13 different species of whales in these waters, and Húsavík is known as the whale watching capital of the world. So if you are a whale watching aficionado, Húsavík is definitely the place for you, and it's also a really cute town as well. Moving on to the east, this part of Iceland is full of narrow fjords, rugged mountains, remote homesteads, and historic fishing villages. This is when you kind of start to get out of the more densely populated areas of Iceland and really get into these wonderful little villages of Iceland. There are a variety of hiking trails, and you can even meet the Icelandic horse, which there are 80,000 of in Iceland. So really, really cool that everyone wants to see the Icelandic horse. But to the left here is a small fishing village called Siglufjörður. It has a wonderful museum for you to visit that you can just kind of see the history of Iceland's fishing. And then, of course, the Icelandic horse there that you can see on the right. There are several that are wild, but there are also several that are tame. You can, anyone can ride the horses. We offer anything from, beginner to advanced riding. So you can really get an experience on an Icelandic horse in Iceland. So in the south, moving on, we've now completed our circle in Iceland. In the south of Iceland, there are some of the best known sites of Iceland in the south. This picture that you're viewing here is the Glacier Lagoon. So within this lagoon, large pieces of ice break off the glaciers and then float to the sandy shores of Iceland's black lava beaches and sparkle almost like diamonds, which you can see here. So it's a really great contrast between the glaciers and the black sand beaches. So Glacier Lagoon is definitely a must if you're in the south. Also in the south, it's quite popular for, again, more waterfalls. This is the Skagafoss waterfall and is probably the most popular waterfall in the south. So we actually stopped here when we traveled to do a glacier walk. So again, each waterfall is completely different, but this one is definitely the most popular in the south. So the highlands are quite different. So we've essentially just circled the island traveling along Ring Road, but what is in the middle of Iceland? So most of the country is the highlands. So it does take up most of Iceland. So away from the crowds and the hustle and bustle of the ring roads, the highlands offer silence and serenity. This definitely is a little bit more adventurous of an activity. You do need a 4x4 vehicle to travel throughout the highlands, and there are no hotels, essentially, mostly just camping. But you can definitely make it through the highlands in one day. So if you're interested in taking in these vast, vast landscapes with the snow-capped mountains and just get a different landscape of Iceland, the highlands, are definitely a great place to visit. Wonderful hiking and trekking in the summer months, and there are a number of geological elements and lava fields. So the highlands are definitely, if you have the time, a great place to touch on. So again, I mentioned the 4x4 vehicle. If you would definitely need a guide for traveling throughout the highlands, but some of those crazy landscapes that I was talking to you about, you can see here on the right. So I mentioned how to get around kind of at the beginning. So mostly, if you're interested in self-driving, of course, it's easy when you're following along Ring Road. You're also welcome to hire a private guide if you'd like to take you around to the several different sites of Iceland. I'd recommend flying from Reykjavik's city airport to any of the popular destinations throughout Iceland. You can easily book those, or just to make it even easier on you, Iceland also offers some cruising options. So I just wanted to quickly give you an idea of what a cruise might look like if you choose to go that route when traveling through Iceland. This ship that you see here is called the Ocean Diamond. It's only 199 passengers, so we are most certainly not a mega ship. All of the cabins are outside cabins, and there's a variety of different cabin categories. But this essentially is your floating hotel. So if you'd like to drive your way around Iceland and stop in at the various hotels, you most certainly can. But this particular cruise allows you to travel only during the night and have the whole day at some of Iceland's most popular ports. So this is just to give you an idea of what cruising would look like. The Iceland circumnavigation that Iceland Pro Cruises offers is about 10 days. So instead of driving Ring Road, you get your floating hotel, like I said, and visit all of these ports. So you start in Reykjavik, head up to Stykkishólmur, go to Ísafjörður, visit the northern part of Iceland, which I mentioned in Siglufjörður and Akureyri, travel around to the east of Iceland, and then end back at Reykjavik. So essentially, you're getting a great taste of Iceland in this 10-day circumnavigation. It's a soft expedition, so again, you can be as adventurous or not adventurous. So you're welcome to stay on board and enjoy the scenery, or you can, choose to get off and do some excursions. Just to give you an idea, one of our comfortable cabins, this is just a picture window cabin, or if you're looking to travel in a little bit more luxurious way, a balcony suite cabin. As I mentioned, those temperatures aren't so scary in the summer, reaching almost 68 degrees, so you are able to utilize your balcony. Some of the highlights on board, we do offer several different reading nooks and this is our observation deck, our observation lounge. The lounge is the word I was looking for, sorry. Several different lounges for you to enjoy the scenery as the boat is pulling out of the port. So you're still getting that beautiful sailing down the fjords. We'll have local guides come on board and lecture about everything and anything from the whale species to the northern lights to the Icelandic sagas in our lecture room. Of course, there's a bar for you to enjoy any alcoholic beverages that you'd like. We'll have a pianist on board. So we have tons of different activities that if you'd like to do that. So you can cruise Iceland, you can drive Iceland, you can fly Iceland. So whichever way you're most comfortable. So that's just an introduction to Iceland. Of course, I could sit here and talk about each different destination, north, east, south, and west for quite some time, but I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope that Iceland is first on your list when you are planning your next trip. So Susan and Maria, I think you had some questions. I know that you might want to take the screen away from me.
All right. There we go. Susan, you're still muted. I don't know if you know that.
I fixed that. Okay. All right. So Maria, do you want to start with the questions that you've got?
Sure. I have a question from Julie. I need to know how to pronounce the names of the cities, which thank you, Jessie, for pronouncing the ones that you did pronounce throughout the presentation.
You know, it's not the most beautiful language. It's quite harsh. So it's definitely difficult. So Julie, I feel your pain. I struggled for quite some time to even be able to pronounce the few Icelandic cities that I did mention. What I'm going to do is I have a great blog with an Icelandic colleague of mine pronouncing several of the at least ports of call for the cruise that we spoke about. And it's him just repeating the word and kind of saying it very slowly and breaking it down so you don't sound like you're trying to sneeze when you're pronouncing these ports of call. So I'll send that to Susan, Maria, and the other agents, and we'll get that out to you.
Wonderful. Okay, you touched on the number of days you should spend in Iceland. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Sure, of course. So as I mentioned, Iceland's a year-round destination, so we hope that you have, you know, a week plus to spend with us. But, you know, if you're just wanting to touch on the country and stay in Reykjavik and do day tours out of Reykjavik, you could even do a 5-day trip. I personally would not recommend anything less than 7 days so that you can really get a grasp of the island. You saw how different the landscapes were from the north, south to the east and the west. If you have the 10 to 12 days to spare, that's definitely a sweet spot.
Okay. Do the hotels have blackout curtains?
Boy, that midnight sun is harsh when you're trying to sleep in and overcome your jet lag. So the city hotels do have blackout curtains. If you're staying at something quaint and authentic like a B&B, a bed and breakfast in the countryside, they most likely won't. So highly recommend that you bring an eye mask.
Great. Susan, that's all the questions I've got.
Okay. So Gail asked what animals live in Iceland. I know you already mentioned puffins and 13 species of whales, but what other animals might they see if they visit Iceland?
Sure. So hi, Gail. Definitely the puffins are a main attraction. And then I did mention those 13 different species of whales in those northern waters. There's also reindeer and several different other species of bird life. I believe I also have a blog on the wildlife of Iceland that I'd be happy to pass along to you guys as well.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay, now Steve wants to know how late in the summer does it stay warm enough to swim outside?
Steve, that's a great question. So as I mentioned, the Blue Lagoon and the Lake Mývatn nature baths are actually geothermal hot springs. So those stay hot year round. It's actually quite interesting to be in one of the geothermal baths while it's snowing. So yeah, they're open year round. You can swim outdoors year round. Of course, it might be a little more comfortable during those summer months of May to early August. But again, even when you're traveling during the winter months, those geothermal hot springs are still like hot tubs.
Okay. And then Irma wants to know, when is the best time to go and where should I spend most of my time?
Good question, Irma. So that's a trick question because with me saying Iceland is a year-round destination, it kind of depends on what you want to see. So as I mentioned, those summer months and the midnight sun from April, Mayish to early, just early August, you'll get your midnight sun, which gives you more time in the day to explore, more time in the day to book excursions. It's daylight, you get to experience the midnight sun, and the puffins are there. But of course, with the midnight sun being there, you have absolutely no chance of seeing the northern lights. So the northern lights will start popping through, believe it or not, in late September. Of course, you have a better chance of seeing them in the dead of winter. But during the November to March months, the weather is quite cold, and if you're self-driving, can be inclement. So it depends what you want to see, what you want to do, and how much time to spend where. Gee, that's also a trick question. You can do day tours out of Reykjavik, or you could even stay in the north and see a good part of the island there. So it depends on what you want to see and what you want to do.
Okay, that is the final question that I have. So that, I think, is it. Do you have any more, Maria?
No, I'm all set.
Okay. So with that, we're going to, end the recording. The recording will be available in the Take a Virtual Vacation Facebook group. And then again, if you need to, reach any of us to ask any questions, you can get a hold of Maria, myself, Gail, or Barbara. If you have questions specifically about Iceland, if we don't have the answers, of course, we can reach out and get those answers for you. Or if you would like to start planning a trip in 2021 to go to Iceland, obviously, we'd be more than happy to help you with that. So with that, I'm going to end the recording and say farewell until next Tuesday, when we start our webinars on Tuesdays instead of Thursdays.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.